Welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. I'm your host, Conor O'Shea, and today I'm joined by GMB co-founder and CEO, Andy Fossett. So Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Conor.
So I think most people who are listening to this will have heard of GMB, but do you maybe want to talk about what GMB is and how this all came into being?
Sure. I mean, basically what GMB is it's like it's all the stuff that fitness forgot, right? So like going back through history, we learned how to do things physically, not really for health, but for like defending our tribe, right? So we had martial art was like the first sport. And then, when it wasn't profitable to be fighting other tribes, then we had to have other ways to stay healthy for when it was. So then we invented like acrobatics and things like that were entertainment, dance also, entertainment, but also designed to keep us ready to, ward off attack and everything. Down through the centuries, through the millennia, we had these physical disciplines that you practiced from the time you were young, and then you grew up and you could be a dancer or an acrobat or a martial artist or something else. But then, in our current, post-agricultural sort of revolution times, we don't really have to defend ourselves from attacking neighboring tribes as much. So we had what we call the diseases of affluence, right? And then fitness became a thing that we had to do. This is a really long-winded way to say that fitness got divided from physical disciplines, right? And so in the current modern world, we have like two things. We have applied fitness, which is like your dance, your martial arts, your disciplines, all your things. And then you have fitness for fitness sake, fitness for health, right? The problem with the disciplines, they're great. They're very rich. They give you like a full broad spectrum of physical and mental development and everything. But the problem is that they take your whole life to really master and learn well, right? And if you have a job, if you have a family, if you have hobbies, then you might not have like hours a day to develop to, learning how to juggle on a balance beam while someone's throwing darts at you, right? So what do? Well, you go to the gym and you work out for 30 minutes 3 times a week. But that's a little bit reductive too. So what GMB is, what we are, is we're trying to bring some of the benefits of these physical disciplines, these practices, to the fitness context without having to spend your life in the context of a physical discipline, without having to learn Japanese to study karate, without having to learn the history of circus so you can be able to juggle. Taking all of the things, the techniques and the practices that you can do and apply that provide results for you that make your body stronger in a context that doesn't require you to devote your life to a practice.
Yeah.
That is what we do. So that's like the pseudo-philosophical side of it. But really what it is we teach people things like balance, agility, coordination, all of the stuff that like gets left out of workouts, right? When we're chasing endurance, strength, flexibility. Well, those are the obvious things, but the non-obvious stuff that you can really only get through a broader spectrum of practice, that gets left out, right? And that's what GMB is here to create. And the way it came about was that, Ryan and Jarlo, before I even met them, were teaching fitness stuff, teaching people how to get stronger and more flexible. And during breaks, Ryan would do stuff like handstands, and people would be like, "Oh, I always wished I could do a handstand." And these are strong people, right? Why can't they do a handstand? It's not like they have any deficit that's preventing them, right? And so we realized that there was something missing there. And we decided to become the people that would teach that stuff that's missing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what I love about GMB. It's like really streamlined how to learn important skills. Like I was doing yoga, I think for 2 or 3 years, and then like 4 months of the apprenticeship, I learned way more in that time than in like 2 or 3 years going to yoga classes. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk maybe more about how it all, like what's your background is Tai Do? Is that how you pronounce it in martial arts?
Yes.
So I heard on a podcast you were like 16, was it? And you were competing in the World Championships. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, I started when I was 7.
Yeah.
So Karate Kid came out and I watched the movie. And then 3 days later, I signed up for Taito because back in the 80s, there was no difference between karate and any other martial art in America. We thought they were all the same. Just so happened that the local school was the Taito school in the US. So sheer happenstance. And then I did it. I kept doing it. I liked it. I got pretty good. And when I was 16, I got the chance to compete in the world championships. I
Was
did
that in the
not win.
US or where was it?
No, this was in Japan.
Oh, cool.
I was completely outclassed. I lost all of my matches. But I got the chance to travel to Japan the first time. I got to meet people from a bunch of different countries. I got to be exposed to a lot of things that really opened my eyes and sort of gave me the idea that there was a bit wider world out there than I had been exposed to, you know? So it was definitely a formative experience at that point. And, you know, in terms of background, you know, I started teaching when I was 12. I ran my own dojo at Georgia Tech for like 7 years. I moved to Japan after that, and I trained here for a few years
What
at
brought you
different
to
dojos.
Japan, Andy? Was it just martial arts? You wanted to just
Martial
go?
arts. Yep. After that first trip, I visited a few more times during college. Felt like I wanted to spend more time here, so I knew that I needed to get a visa. Easiest way to do that is to teach English. Got a job doing that, and you know, mostly as an excuse to practice martial arts, but also practically a lot of hours of practicing teaching. So I got in my 10,000 hours easy of classroom instruction, of curriculum design, of, you know, standing in front of groups of, you know, like 10 to 50 people that may not be very interested in your subject matter and trying to get something across to them. So that kind of stuff. So, you know, in addition to just, you know, coaching martial arts, also actual pedagogy, learning how to do all of that stuff, and training at Japanese dojos and all of that. And that's really my background is, you know, the combination of doing the martial art and trying to become a good teacher in that, and then sort of accidentally having you know, a few years experience as a school teacher over here, and putting those together to really figure out, okay, what is the educational method that I want to bring to this, rather than just teaching the way I was taught or continuing to do things the way they've always been done, or doing things, you know, in whatever the most obvious or literal way is. Trying to see if there's a better way that this could be taught or gotten across to people.
Gotcha. And with that with that kind of knowledge with teaching and then martial arts as well and combining them, was there any, what did you take from teaching or vice versa that maybe wasn't in place when you were going to classes yourself? Was there any specific areas or approaches that you found beneficial?
I mean, there's all kinds of things. You know, if you look into, you know, education and pedagogy and, you know, the study of how to teach, there's, I mean, it's a whole discipline that, you know, people have made careers out of, writing books and researching and things. So you can look into that and you can see that there's all kinds of things. You can look at it, you know, developmentally, look at cognitive development of how our bodies and minds develop together. And so even just looking at how children develop and learn in young stages really taught me a lot about how the body and mind work together, and why physical movement is so important for cognitive development, right? So in GMB, we start with these locomotor movement patterns, which is a fancy talk for crawling, right? Crawling is something we all do as babies. Why is that? Well, jury is still out on how instinctual that is versus if it's something that's learned or something that we, you know, just kind of our parents sort of somehow teach us to do. But what happens is we begin moving, because we have an imperative to move, to interact with our environments. And the only way that we're able to do that is by crawling. And what this does is it stimulates our nervous system in different ways, develops, the brainstem and the medulla oblongata and all of the glands and stuff in the brain that control our motor control and everything. And this is how we develop our nervous system. We have stages that we go through both cognitively and physically as we develop as children. And these are things that are just well documented and well known. But if you're in the fitness world, you don't really pay attention to all that stuff because you assume as adults, we are fully formed. And what adults need is lift heavier things, burn more calories, stretch a little harder. What we don't think of is that maybe as adults, we didn't complete our physical development. We didn't completely learn all of the skills that maybe we could have, right? Some of us went through school and had physical education and played sports and competed, or you were involved in some physical discipline like a martial art or something. Some people didn't. And so if somebody has never practiced a tennis serve thousands and thousands of times, well, they don't know what it means to dial in a movement pattern. If someone has never done thousands and thousands of basketball free throws, they don't know what it means to stand in one place and repeat a movement over and over and over until they get it right. So, okay, is it the strength that's preventing this person from being able to do the handstand, or is it because they don't know how to practice physical skills? And so this is kind of the thing is, in terms of like what pedagogy, what my background as a teacher brings to what we do at GMB, it's really that understanding that we have these developmental levels and there are kind of milestones we have to check off to get to the next one, And a lot of us are missing important steps in our development, important skills that we never got because we never really completed our physical development. Even though we are full-grown adults, we left out certain things, right? Our balance isn't very good. Oh, I'm just a klutz. No, you've never practiced anything that requires gross motor control. That's why you're a klutz. It's not because you're innately incapable of balancing. All of these things are trainable. Almost everything physical is trainable if you know how to do it. And I think that's really the thing, is that I know that there are ways to train all of these things that a lot of us assume are unchangeable.
Yeah. The crawling from a developmental point of view, and as far as I know, stuttering, if someone has a speech impediment, a lot of, well, not a lot, but like some speech and language therapists will actually get people to go and crawl again because if they've missed that as a child, apparently that's affected their speech, which is pretty crazy, but it's kind of in line with what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's different areas of the brain are stimulated by different kinds of movement and stuff. And all of this stuff with your nervous system relates to, the autonomic nervous system as well, to your organs and your perceptions and your ability to even comprehend the world around you. Your sense organs work better or worse if you've had certain experiences, So yeah, absolutely. And we'll probably always still be discovering new connections between the mind and the body, which is mostly to say that, of course, they're connected because there's the same thing. Mm-hmm. But we've had this artificial division between them in our perceptions for so long that it's hard for us to understand just how interrelated they are.
Yeah. So now I want to talk to you a bit more about GMB and you're the CEO, so like running a business, and
CEO is like technically, as a legal entity, someone has to be the CEO. But if you think about it, like chief executive officer, that implies there are other executive officers, which implies there are non-executive officers, which implies that there are other people under those officers.
Yeah.
CEO sounds like a much bigger company than we are, is what I'm getting at. I am the world's like least CEO. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the
Well, that's what I
guy
love.
who
That's what I love
happens to be
about
in
it.
charge.
It's very relaxed. It's like not corporate at all, even though it sounds corporate.
No.
Um, but can you go through maybe some timelines, because you were teaching, you were coaching martial arts in Japan, and then you were working with Lee Pages, was it? Were you doing some copywriting with them?
So before lead pages, well, I mean, actually, while it was doing lead pages, I was still doing it. So basically, right around the time I got married, around like 2009, I was living in Osaka, and Ryan, one of the other co-founders of GMB, lives in Osaka, and we were hanging out and training together and trying to figure out how to do the next thing, right? How to be more independent, be able to sort of take the next step as grown adult men, and be able to provide for a family and have a future and that kind of stuff. And so we worked together on a few different projects and things. Ryan was teaching, had a fitness studio that he was doing private lessons out of. I was still teaching high school, but at the same time I started learning copywriting and how to make things on the internet. I had taught myself a few years before that how to make a simple website and do some things. And one of the guys that I learned a lot from was a guy named Clay Collins, who eventually went on to found Lead Pages. And so I learned a lot of things from him and worked with him. And I got to do some copywriting for him. And also when Lead Pages was starting out, I started coaching some of their clients on email copywriting and that kind of thing. What was lucky about that was that I got to learn how to write good emails from someone who was very good at it. And I got the chance to send the emails that I wrote to a large number of people. You need feedback to learn, to grow, to develop. And so if you're just starting out and you don't have access to an audience, where do you get that feedback from? It can be kind of a chicken egg problem, right? But I was very lucky that I got the chance to write things and send them out to hundreds of thousands of people and see how they worked. Which really accelerated my learning curve in that. So we started GMB in 2010, and we were doing okay with that, but it was, not, a full-time income for anybody by any stretch of the imagination at that point. So I was still doing copywriting and working with Clay and Lead Pages until I think about 2012 or so is when I cut off anything else and started just doing GMB. Yeah.
What was the moment when you were like, whoa, this is actually really taking off? Was there any specific like launch, or you hit a certain amount of clients, or when you were like, this is going a bit crazy now?
I mean, there is, different ones at different stages. I think the biggest one was, we hired a couple people to help with different things, and had to, you have to pay them, right? And basically every month it would come down to it. And this is what CEO really means, is that you get paid last when you're starting out. That was me. I got paid last because I was the one that had to make sure everyone else got paid. And the time that I thought things finally were really catching on were when, I think it was 2015, we had, I think, 6 of us on the team, and we all got together in California and did a seminar and a few things and met up. And right around that time, just kind of coincidentally, just happened to be the first time that I didn't really have to check the bank before I sent payroll. And that was it. That from then I was like, okay, we are okay. That was the switch from like having to check to see if we were still going to make it every month versus defaulting to, yes, we are alive. The default was alive versus default, I don't know if we're going to make it. Right.
Wow. So that's like 5 years. And I'm pretty sure I would have bought Rings 1 in 2015. So you would have been really big at that point. I would still think like you would have had quite Elements was out then, was it?
I
Would have
think
been the year I had.
2015, the end of 2015 was when we launched Elements. Around that time, I believe we had a total of, say, 5,000, 6,000 clients.
Yeah. Okay.
If memory serves, that's about where we were at.
And you'd have a pretty big YouTube following and everything at that point.
I wouldn't. I have a hard time trying to guess what our following on YouTube was at that point, but we were starting to get a little bit of traction on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's just interesting because the fact that you're saying like just after 5 years and you were just starting to be like, okay, we're not going to sink, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's people. So this is the thing too. I mean, there's people that like are good at business. There's people that know what they're doing. There's people that have other experiences that they bring to this, and they already know how to run a company. And like, oh, we launched and we were at annualized like $1 million, $2 million within 5 months or something. Well, yeah, that's a possible thing. Sometimes if you're lucky, or if you have advisors who have built businesses before, or if you are creating a new agency after you have 10 or 15 years of experience in an industry. So you hear stories about people that are successful faster or whatever. Absolutely, it happens. But in terms of just completely bootstrapping everything from zero and teaching yourself how to do it all as you go along, it takes time. Takes time. And I'm not saying that like our path was like morally superior to someone who brings other experience to things and is able to move faster. It's just that's where we were at. And yeah, it took us a long time to get traction. It was probably the same year that Jarlo and Ryan both stopped doing other work, right? So maybe I stopped doing other work 2012. It was probably 2015 for both of them.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone was like full in on GMB then.
Yeah.
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 With regards to, well, first, what would you say is the biggest failure you've had in that time, and what did you learn from it?
Biggest failure. I mean, man, it's hard. I think one of the things is anyone who runs a business for any length of time will tell you that one of the hardest things is learning how to hire the right people and how to fire the wrong people. And this is something that I am not good at. This is also, it's a minefield. When you talk about stuff like this publicly, if anyone that works for GMB is listening to this, like, oh shit, Andy's probably regrets that he hasn't fired me yet. That's not really the case. But I mean, there's probably people in the company that I should very likely be a little harder on objectively creating some consequence around performance. But more important than that, there's people that we did have to fire that we waited way too damn long for. And there's also positions that we should have hired for that we waited, or we hired the wrong person for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Hiring is hard, and I have screwed it up many times. I've also gotten really lucky and done a really damn good job a couple of times too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Like, is it hard because, well, I don't know what's going on inside the company, but it seems like you're all very friendly and like just laid back. Is that kind of the part where maybe people can take advantage of it, or is it just
difficult? I'm not trying to say especially like anyone presently is taking advantage, or that anyone in the past intentionally took advantage. That's not really it. It's just what happens is anytime you have a group of people that spend a lot of time together, you develop a group culture, right? And that culture is, it's an average, and you don't rise to the level of the highest performers. You always sink to the level of what gets tolerated by the lowest performers. And performance is relative, and that's the way it is. Also, at the end of the day, we understand, Ryan Jarlow and I are the owners of the company, and we each have a very clear picture of exactly how hard we want to be working. And frankly, I'm not interested in working hard. I know you're not supposed to say shit like that, especially if you're in fitness, you know, oh, you got to give 110% effort all the time. No, fuck that. I don't like working hard. I like reading books and sipping bourbon while I lie on
Drinking beer.
in an easy chair. I like listening to jazz all night. I don't like pumping out reps. I do it, you know. I do work. I have meetings, but I don't like working hard. I don't, you know. I've done it. I've done my 14-hour days, you know, and gotten to the point where I don't have to do too many more of them. And so part of it is that, yes, we have a culture that is as it is. And every time you hire or fire somebody, that changes a little bit. And so, yeah, it's a tough thing to manage, and you can be aware of it, and you can be various degrees of satisfied with it or not satisfied with it, but changing it requires changing the people. You can't just say, hey guys, from now on, we're gonna.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Personalities are in place. And
so, yeah, if I wanted to turbocharge our results and create a high performance culture, yeah, I'd absolutely have to can 6 people that I really like.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's 2 questions I'd like to go into from that. The first one is like managing inputs, managing noise, managing decision making. Like you must be being pulled in lots of different directions, especially I've gone fully online the last 2 years, and there's so much noise. Like that's a challenge. So I can only imagine what it's like for you. So how do you manage that, and do you have any advice around that?
Managing noise. So one of the things is, I think that humans adapt to anything. So I'm not fully sold on the notion that we need to be avoiding stimulus from our environment. I live online. I wake up in the morning and I suck down my Twitter feed and I read opinions from a bunch of people I don't know. And I let that either affect me or not affect me based on a lot of different factors, right? But part of it is I've learned how to surf that wave through practice. So I can choose to not be affected by parts of it. The other thing is that a lot of this is that I am trying to receive inputs from various things, because one of my superpowers is that I am not a narrow specialist in a certain field, right? I have my background in copywriting and in education and martial arts. Those are pretty different things, even though they're also very tightly related in certain things too. But the thing that makes me say valuable is that, yeah, I can sell things, I can teach things, I could do technical stuff enough to create websites and learn how to, make digital products available on the internet back at a time when that was pretty difficult. Being able to do a lot of things because I am good at learning, I'm good at absorbing and filtering a bunch of information, and also being able to synthesize it. And this is one of the things that is very challenging sometimes, but very rewarding when you're able to, is to synthesize ideas from various fields. And that's how you come up with creative new insights and learn how to do things that people haven't done before, right? So where I'm going with this is that I don't try to really reduce my information intake, but I try to be a critical thinker. I don't accept things at face value. I don't believe everything I read, which I know a lot of people would say that they don't believe everything they see on TV, but then 15 minutes later, you'll hear them parrot back the exact same thing that they just heard without realizing it. So being a critical thinker and really learning how to filter things and how to evaluate the veracity of things that you see or the usefulness of them. And then to say, okay, I don't care about this. And that's a hard one because we have a lot of things that we say we don't care about, but most of us still, when we say we don't care about something, we really mean I only care 30% about that. Mm-hmm. One of my things that I try to really focus on is when I decide not to care about something, I mean zero. I for real choose to care zero about it. And I make a conscious choice about some of these things, which can be really hard to do. But like, I can't name 2 Kardashians.
You're missing out, Andy. That's like that information is important to whenever you come back to the west, you need to know that.
Yeah, apparently. But this is the thing. When I go and I visit America and people make jokes, sometimes I don't know what the hell they're talking about because I have not watched TV really in a very long time. I don't see the commercials. I don't know. Maybe that makes me a boring guest at dinner parties. Mm-hmm. But how many dinner parties do you go to, Connor? Not a whole lot, man.
Oh, I don't really want to go to that dinner party either if they're just talking about celebrity culture. So
right. So again, there's another thing I don't have to care about, so I'm fine with it. And I think that's really the thing is, I do try to aggregate by paying attention to people who are intelligent, and clever, but otherwise I absorb a lot of things, and I think that being able to sort of surf the waves of information is one of the things that lets me stay ahead of a lot of stuff and have a really, to toot my own horn, a pretty interesting and compelling vision of the way some things could be that they aren't yet. So yeah, that would be something that I would miss out on if I tried to filter myself off. But I have to balance that with time of just like taking walks and like getting away from it too.
Yeah. It's interesting. You basically said the exact same thing as I had John Goodman from the Online Training Academy on a few weeks ago, and he said synthesizing ideas from other fields. He literally said the same thing as you, which is interesting because you're both like extremely successful in the fitness industry.
So I've met John exactly one time. He's definitely a clever guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny. He literally said the same thing.
He also puts together a lot of different stuff really, really well. So as an assembler of different things, I guess would be one way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're definitely very similar in that sense, being able to take ideas that aren't connected. Have you had so Clay Collins, he kind of mentored you on the copywriting side of things, would you say?
Yeah, to a degree. So Clay was like back in like 2005 or 6 started selling ebooks on the internet, back when that was like nobody really did that, right? And learned how to do all of this stuff. And so he started teaching some other people to do it. I paid Clay $95 for, I was like his second customer of his first course on like how to I think sell an ebook or something, right? And I was one of the people that applied it and started putting it into practice, and I made some stuff. And so he noticed that, and I got the chance to work with him on a couple of different projects. I think I wrote some copy for a product that he did. I wrote some emails for some things, and I coached some clients. Mostly I helped answer questions for people that were coming through the same program that I did, and helped them learn how to apply stuff. And so basically what I got out of that was, again, a lot more reps of being able to sort of see the challenges that people had, and be able to find ways around them. And, I did have access to Clay to be able to figure out, what were the things that he had learned with doing it even more, and, with larger audiences and more successfully, and being able to know, to see where he was going with things, a few months ahead of what was available to the public, so that, again, having a little bit of a jump on where things were going.
And like, then the fact that there's so much unknown over the last 10, 12 years with the industry where you're taking things with GMB, was that just your ability to kind of synthesize different ideas, or did you have anyone kind of giving you advice in that area as well, or was that just kind of learning on the fly and trying things out?
Mostly this has all been an experiment, Jarlo and I mean, Ryan to a degree as well, but especially Jarlo and I are very very practical, numbers driven kinds of people when it comes to looking at what's happening, and you sort of being analytical about what is working and what is not working, and what is useful and what is not useful. And so we've done, I think, a pretty good job of looking at what people do, maybe rather than what they say they want. Mm-hmm. Right? We have a lot of people now that still say, oh, I wish I could get the old courses that you used to sell, and I regret that I didn't buy them back then. Well, you could have. The reason you say that now, these are people that don't even know what those courses looked like, really. They feel that they have missed out, right? Yeah. But back then, when they had the option, they did not get them. Right? So there's what people say and there's what people do. And we have a lot of people that say, oh, I want to learn this, or I want to do this, but then we can see what they actually do and what they need and where they have trouble and what they can't do. Like, we had thousands of people that did those early programs. And so, you know what, we got really a lot of data on the parts of them that people had trouble with. So then we made programs that address those. We made programs like we have now that get people where they can actually do all the stuff they think they want to do, right? We solve the problems before people realize they have them. And this is partly just due to paying attention. So no, we didn't really have any like mentors telling us this is what you should do in your business next or anything like that. Once we got to the place where we were able to pay ourselves a comfortable salary and be fairly okay monetarily, we've just mostly, looked at what was doing well, tried to do more of it, and then also looked at what we like, what we enjoy versus what we don't, and have tried to, stick towards doing more and more and more of the former and less of the latter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, man. The fact that you have just kind of figured it out, it's really interesting.
I mean, we've screwed up a bunch, right? We've put out things that haven't done well. People remember like the earlier programs that like the Rings 1 and Parallettes 1, that those aren't for sale anymore. But people don't remember that there were like 6 other courses we released during that time that quietly went away that nobody missed.
Do you mean like the Rings 2, F2, those, or is there other ones?
Nope.
Oh, well, what were these other ones?
Maybe a story for another time. But we've released maybe 30 programs.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea. Okay, very interesting.
Right? If you talk to our clients that have been with us since the beginning, some of them might be able to name up to 13, possibly 14 of them. But we've probably released, maybe not 30, maybe 25 programs.
And they'll just bomb and then you'll just pull them off, is it? Because they're just...
Bomb is a subjective thing. They didn't do what we wanted them to do. Or they didn't do them profitably enough or pleasurably enough.
Yeah, gotcha.
Like we had a coaching program several times. We've had a few coaching programs. But you'll notice that we really don't right now. It's because we didn't enjoy not managing the clients. We didn't enjoy managing coaches.
When you say coaching programs, what do you mean? Like apprenticeships, that kind of stuff? Or
no, I mean like one-on-one online personal training coaching.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. When did you stop doing that?
I mean, we stopped doing it several times. I don't know.
Okay. So kind of stop, start, and then tried it again, and it just clearly wasn't working. So the next thing I'd like to ask you is around balancing growth and being content with like, hey, we're actually doing great. We have, I don't know, 80,000 clients. We're
Almost
pretty good.
100,000.
100,000, yeah, which is
Almost, yeah.
bananas. So how do you manage that in the sense that like you want to keep spreading the word versus like, I think we're good?
Okay, well, so the first thing is, who says I'm content? If you ask anyone in GMB, they probably will agree fairly readily that I am biologically incapable of satisfaction. I will very occasionally say that someone has done a good job. This again is me not being a very good boss, but for the most part, I'm not satisfied with anything. I'm not satisfied with any of the work any of us does, including myself. Not satisfied with Ryan's proportion of gray to black in his beard. Not satisfied with the growth of the company. Not satisfied with the quality of our advertising. Not satisfied with our content. Not satisfied with much of anything. I'm not a person who can probably be satisfied. It's just who I am. It's how I am. I'll go to hell. I'm a bad person. But the thing is that whether or not I can be content is not really relevant. Growth is a trade-off, right? Growth is always going to be a trade-off. So what is the opportunity cost of continuing to grow in one dimension versus something else? What, by, let's say, if we say we want to get GMB to 1 million clients, or let's say we want to get GMB to $25 million a year in revenue, which, just to be clear, is like massively many times more than we make right now. Okay, well, that's one dimension of growth versus something else. Now, how hard are we going to have to work to do that? How much time am I going to take away from my family? Am I still going to get to, go practice martial arts? Am I going to get to read a lot of books? Really like reading. Like, I like sitting down, and I like that I read 3 or 4 books a week. I enjoy that. If we were going to grow, if we're going to double the size of the company this year, I probably wouldn't be able to read as many books. And then I would be sad. And then I wouldn't get to sleep as much. Mm-hmm. I know this sounds not very compelling probably to people. If there's anyone listening to this, it's like an achievement oriented person, but I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a person that can be content, but I'm also not a person that likes, like I said earlier, to work very hard for sustained periods. I like to bust ass on things to get me to a certain point. But then when I get to whatever level, I want to be able to chill and relax. I appreciate my slack. So if I look at like, so I'm only still in touch with maybe a couple of people I went to school with, but if I look at what I would call my peer, right, then there are definitely people who say make more money than me. There are a handful of people that are probably happier than me. There are a handful of people who are healthier than me. Some people who look better than me. Some people who have like happier families than me. Okay. So in any of those dimensions, there are some people who are doing way better than me. Some people want to achieve the 95th percentile or 99th percentile in like income or happiness or spiritual attainment or something like that. I don't. I want to get to like the 85th percentile in as many things as possible. I want to be slightly above mediocre at a lot of shit. So this is my answer to growth, is like, that's how I balance it, not by being content, but just by realizing that growth of the company might actually mean sacrificing other things that are equally important to me.
Mm-hmm. So you just navigate that by your growing because you're never really happy with the outcomes that pushes you to be better, but then you are also looking at the other balls with your family, your health, your martial arts,
Right.
whatever else. And if it starts taking away, I guess you have a baseline set for them that you have a certain amount of hours or whatever in your head, and it doesn't take away from them. And if it does, then you need to pair things back with the company. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a dynamic balance, right? And it's not static at all. There's seasons and different shifts of relative priority of things, but yeah, at some point maybe company growth will become a priority again. But right now, really our job is to continue doing right by our clients, doing right by our staff, making our stuff the best it can be, and trying to make something that provides for all of our families in a way that's pretty nice and something we can be proud of, that provides a good quality of life without taking away from that very same quality of life in the process, right? So yeah, it's a dynamic balance that shifts. And, I'm not the only person that's involved in making these decisions too, right? I have Jarlo and Ryan, I have 2 partners, and I have a team of, almost 20 people, depending on how you count, of other people who are involved. So it's not something that I get to make that decision personally in a vacuum either, right?
Yeah.
I have a responsibility to make sure that the company is providing for the needs of the other people who have a say in that.
Yeah. So let's say GMB ends today or tomorrow and you are starting from zero again and it's just you, one man show. What would you do? And you need to make money, you need to get clients, X, Y, and Z. What would you do? So what platform would you start on? What approach? Let's just say it's kind of the same approach as GMB, that style of training. Like what would you recommend to put your energy and time into?
Okay, so if I were to make a company like GMB again, which is not to say I would, but if I were,
yeah, well, like
I
a
would definitely do it.
fitness business, you're a one-man show, basically. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, all right, what I would focus on, there's two options. One is I would focus on making entertaining short form content for TikTok and create a community sort of situation where there is a free level and there is a paid sort of group coaching level to that. That would be what I would build. That would not be something that you can probably monetize immediately, but that is something that I think I could spin up as the company fairly well, right? I think right now, in terms of being able to build a base of leads and engaged community members quickly, TikTok is probably the platform that you should be on if you're trying to do that. And I think that having a community function is something that is on the rise in terms of demand right now. People want to be part of something. It's also something that means you can spend less time having to personally answer all the questions. I don't want to be the fitness guru. So if I were doing this and building this, I would not want it to be about me as such as an idea that other people, other members of the community can become leaders and experts in as well. So that also means that I don't have to be the source of all of the answers. I don't have to be the person that does all the customer support. I don't have to be the person that tells people how to log in because someone else already knows that, right? I don't have to be the person that tells people obvious things all the time. You can, if you build a strong community of people who are autonomous and have their own experience, then you can leverage that and reward them also with status and belonging and possibly monetarily as well as the community grows. So that would be what I would want to do. Build an audience on TikTok, leverage it as a leaderless community, a flat hierarchical community that also has a paid level where people can work together with a smaller, tighter group of peers on a team, right?
So you would basically kind of build like Alpha Posse style community, would it be like on something like Mighty
Potentially,
Networks?
Potentially.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm taking notes. Yeah, Rose actually recommended a book on communities that you talked about. I can't remember the name, but it was really helpful. It's kind of along the what you're talking about there, about getting the community members to do the work, but then they're more engaged and they're happier, and it's like it's just like a win-win-win all around, from you saving
Right. And
time.
that's the important thing, is it's not, you're not like exploiting the community to do the work. I mean,
Yeah.
you're organizing and curating and bringing people together. I'm a member of a very small community of people that I think I pay $17,000 or $18,000 a year to be part of a group of like 250 people that is very tightly monitored and brought together very intentionally to be the right kind of people. And it's extremely valuable for me, because I know that I have access to a lot of sort of group knowledge and experience that I would not be able to access otherwise, right? People will pay dearly to be part of a group where they feel that they are understood, valued, and that they can also extract, some other resource that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. So like you said, it's definitely a win-win-win kind of situation when you have that. And when you get a group of like more than 10 people, leaders naturally arise out of that. And that's kind of one of my things, is I don't know why or how, but I tend to end up in leadership positions in groups. Maybe it's because I'm the loudest. Maybe it's because I'm the shortest and I'm trying to make up for my small penis. I don't know what it really at cause makes that happen, but I do tend to end up in a leadership kind of role in groups. And so that's how I'm the boss of GMB, right? It's not because I was better at muscle ups.
You've
That's
got a
not how
good
we make
muscle up though,
decisions
so I think that is probably part of it.
like that. Yeah.
So
So I mean, that's a great thing though, is like in groups, like we all sort of like we have our own proclivities of how we interact with people. And so like I know that about myself. Like if I were starting something that wasn't a GMB thing or a fitness thing, I would just find a group of like really passionate experts, and I would help rally around them and help them turn that into something, right? It's literally what happened with Ryan and Jarlo, who are extremely talented experts in what they do, and I was more of a dilettante hack at the same thing, is how they let me hang with them in the first place. But I had a little bit of vision of how we could turn that into something else that they probably would never have done if they hadn't met me, right?
Yeah, and that's, as you said, you can apply that skill to anything where you bring a community of passionate people together and you can turn it into
Right.
something. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So community really is the big underlying factor in whatever the business would be you going forwards if you had to start from scratch.
For my personal proclivities and where I see a lot of things headed right now, I think that this is a great time to be leveraging short form video content into a community, into a paid team type of situation. Yes.
Very cool. Okay. Now, close to 100,000 clients with GMB Fitness, which is bananas. Yep. You've read probably a few emails over the years from clients with what they struggle with. So
a few 100,000 of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, like an amazing data set into what people are struggling with. What themes are coming up repeatedly for the last 12 years? And what's the kind of way, or what have you found helpful for people to get through those difficulties?
Okay. So like, I used to be a Boy Scout. Ryan was a Boy Scout. Ryan was an Eagle Scout. I actually quit Boy Scouts like right before I got the Eagle thing to focus on martial arts. So one of the things you learn in Boy Scouts is orienteering, which for anyone who's not 100 years old, because this is a lost art, this is arcane now. Nobody knows orienteering anymore. Orienteering means how to find your way with a map and a compass. Right? That's what orienteering is. Now today, nobody knows how to do this because we have a much better version of that in our pockets on our phones. The thing is, when we're looking for information, when we're looking for a way to achieve a goal or do something, we tend to think we need a map. But you can't do orienteering with just a map. A map shows you the lay of the land around your goal. But if you don't know where you're starting, the path to get there is not obvious. The number one biggest mistake, confusion, misapprehension, frustration people have is that they do not either know or understand how to relate where they are right now to where they wish they were. We look at people on Instagram or YouTube and we see a goal, a place, and then we see what they're doing and we think that's the path there. But man, if you're coming from the west side, somebody traveling from the east is going to do something a lot different than you are, right? So we are bad at playing the ball where it lies. We think that we should all be able to just pick up the ball, put it in the ideal starting point, and follow a consistent 12-week plan that somebody has laid out and said, this is the path, this is the process. But that process is not usually related to where you're starting. It's missing the GPS component of the map. This is why iPhone and Google Maps completely killed orienteering, completely killed maps, right? The navigation in your car, it's not good because it's a good map. It's good because it knows where you are. That is the most important thing. We try to compare ourselves to others. We try to assume that we should be here, or we should be here, or we should be here. How many weeks is it going to take? I don't know, man. How many weeks is it going to take you? How long does it take to get a handstand, Connor? How long does it take, man?
It depends.
14 and a half hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every person.
14 and 3/4, I think is roughly
right?
Around that.
You can't answer these questions. And people get frustrated because they're like, oh, well, I tried to do the thing, but I couldn't do it the way Ryan, who's been doing this for 40 years, does it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's
I can't do this exercise, so tell me some other exercises that will let me be able to do this exercise. Well, it doesn't really work that way. And so in the programs, we made them specifically to help you find that for yourself. But if people assume, people try to take things too literally, right? And if you assume that you are supposed to follow things, do things the way Ryan does them, for example, right? Then yeah, it's going to be really frustrating. So that's the number one thing, is just this lack of awareness of where you are right now and assuming that the steps are going to look the same for everyone. The steps at a meta level are very similar for most people in terms of starting at a starting point, experimenting through it, finding out how to do it a little better, and continuing on through, right? But if you take it too literally, then it can be really, really hard.
Okay. So kind of managing expectations and then also just not really being sure where you are on the path.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm just going to finish with some rapid fire questions, Andy, because I'm conscious of your time. If you could have dinner with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I don't know, man. I've met like powerful and famous people before, and there's not too much that they can do that's going to change your life in the course of a dinner conversation. So I would somebody entertaining. Like, I'd love to have dinner with Steve Martin. I bet he's hilarious. Bill Murray.
That's great.
That would be great.
Yeah. Awesome. For what are you most grateful for in your life?
Right now, the fact that I get to live a very, very relaxing lifestyle. I am extremely grateful that my family is well provided for and happy and healthy, and we just get to basically chill and do the things we like to do and that we need to do and be okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is your greatest accomplishment to date, would you say?
Objectively, GMB. Subjectively, my family and my daughter being happy.
Yeah, great. Books, recommended books that you maybe you can talk about fitness, business, anything. Or you're a massive reader if you're reading 3 or 4 books a week.
Yeah, I mean, I've read thousands of books. So like the one book that I tend to recommend a lot is, it's super dated. It was written in like 71, I think. So a lot of the metaphors don't really hold up, but this is maybe the book that influenced me the most. It's called Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson. And some of it is about drug culture and, sort of mysterious woo-woo kind of stuff, but not really. It's actually just about the idea that you can have some sway over your perceptions of reality and the way you choose to interact with the world, and how you make your own life. And like I said, it's a little dated, so some people are like, it wasn't anything really good. But I've recommended this to a bunch of people, and if you read it with an open mind, it can really be one of the things that teaches you that it's okay to go off script. It's okay to make your own rules about what you want out of life, and you can still be pretty successful and pretty happy by maybe deciding to play a game that's a little different from the games most people around you seem to be playing.
Very cool. I've never heard of that book, but yeah, that sounds very interesting. It's it's nonfiction.
Nonfiction.
Yeah. Okay.
If you want fiction, it's kind of cliche, but I really like Infinite Jest. It's a super long book by David Foster Wallace. A lot of people hate it because they think it's kind of show-offy, and also some people, he turned out to be a jerk to women in real life sometimes. But as a book, it's a great book. It is so many different things about fiction. It's a very rich novel that I also really enjoy. That's maybe the novel I've read probably the most number of times.
Okay.
I read it probably every year.
Right. Is it like 1,000 pages, like that sort of length?
Something like that. It's got
Yeah.
like 100 pages of endnotes too. It's
Wow.
nuts. But,
Yeah, that's crazy.
but it's rewarding, and you can also go back to it and pick the places that you like to read again. It's nice.
Very good. Okay, I've heard a lot of people mention him, but I've never read any of his stuff. So that's Infinite Jest is what you'd recommend from him as a starting point.
As a starting point, I would suggest reading a book of stories that he wrote called A Girl with Curious Hair, or The Girl with Curious Hair. So yeah, his short fiction is easier to get into.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. If you could put something on a billboard where millions, if not billions, of people would see it, what would you write?
I would turn it off. I would give everyone 15 blessed seconds of silence.
That's a great answer. Very good. That's great, Andy. So I really appreciate your time, mate. Where's the best place for people to check out more about you? You know, where do you want to send people basically who are listening?
There's nothing especially interesting about me for most people's purposes. Just go to GMB, buy the damn programs. I'm completely going to be shameless about this. Honestly, we have like thousands of free things that you can try and use and stuff, but just buy the damn programs and do them. Honestly, like my contribution to the universe, Ryan and Jarlo, our contribution to the universe is those programs. Anyone who buys the damn program, does the damn program, their life is going to be better. That's like, I can't offer anyone any more than that. Give us $95, you will thank us.
Yeah, I stand behind that so strongly. Like Elements is probably more light bulbs went off my head doing Elements during the apprenticeship than any other program I've ever done, which is a pretty crazy thing to say. So yeah,
it is.
Just buy it. Just buy it, go through it, and then ask questions afterwards. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't you can look at Elements, be like, it's very like there's not enough stuff in there for me, but just do it. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, which is it's hard to get your head around it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing is, nobody has ever mastered anything, or no one has ever changed their life by reading about something or by thinking they understand it. You got to do it. That's the only way. You have to do it. You have to put in the time. And so if you do it, it will absolutely benefit.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome, mate. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure thing.